Welcome back to the Living Your Career show, everyone. My name is Roisin Duffy. I'm a director at Blue Sky Careers. Our show is specially designed for you, the job seeker, the advancing professional. And our aim is to give you the confidence and the tools and some tips to help you to back yourself in your career. Our theme today is how to communicate effectively to build and leverage relationships on purpose to benefit your career. Even without COVID-19, people found networking and building relationships challenging. Those that are good at it are very good at it. Those that struggle, they shy away from it. And now with working remotely, we need to be smarter. We need to be smarter about the relationships that we know and hold dear. We need to establish new relationships to foster our career growth. And we need to build, on the existing ones that we have. In short, we need to build relationships with purpose. Our guest today is Lindsay Adams, alias the Relationships Guy. Lindsay is a former public servant, entrepreneur, conference speaker, and trainer. In 2020, he was recognized, and he said to me, out of the blue, it would seem, with an Order of Australia medal for his service to professional speaking. In addition to 3 successful businesses, he is the author of 4 books. And the one that I've been particularly interested in, and I believe there's another one which we'll talk about shortly, The DNA of Business Relationships. It's business relationships. It's quickly coming in, I think, Lindsay. How to engage, expand, and energize relationships. Welcome to the show, Lindsay. It's an honor to have you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Roisin, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I guess, Lindsay, I just mentioned it in the intro. People struggle with networking. It could be lack of confidence. It could be lack of allocation of time. They probably don't see it as a priority. They've got busy lives. You've made it a priority all of your life. And I guess my question to you is, did you? What do you believe is the first principle of networking for people who are looking for jobs or looking for career growth in their lives?
It's an interesting question. And really, it comes down to this: relationships first, pitch, sell, promote, second, third, or whatever. So the critical part is to get into relationship with somebody, have a genuine conversation. Listen to what they're saying and, comment, participate, but actually talk to the other person. Don't talk to them, not talking at them. It's a really critical piece. A lot of people make this mistake. They go the pitch first. They want to promote themselves. They want a prospective employer to know how fantastic they are, instead of actually getting to know that person a little first and building a bridge or establishing a relationship.
I remember in your book reading, you said nobody ever developed a relationship or a purposeful one by showing somebody else how good they were. And I think it's probably said much more nicely than that. But basically, we've all been at networking events and somebody can't wait to get a hold of you and tell you how great they are. And I'd like you to expand on that a little bit for me, because obviously you're a very, very well-known, recognized, awarded professional speaker, conference speaker. And you must have met a lot of interesting people in your time. Yeah. So we talk about somebody who's shaking your hand and showboating effectively. When that happens, do you try to help them to sort of say, move the conversation on, or what do you do?
Well, I think, my little trade secret is to, when you meet someone for the first time, the first thing you have to do is listen as if this is the most important conversation of your life. You've got to listen to them 100%. Think of the times, Roisin, if you've been to a business function and you're talking to someone and they're looking over your shoulder, yes, in the room that's more interesting than you. No, you've got to focus 100% on the person that you're talking to, and listen as if this is the best and only conversation that you've had today. The other thing is to actually get them talking more about themselves than you. Don't dominate the conversation. Get them to talk rather than you. So ask open-ended questions that gets them to contribute or think or share more than you telling them about you. Interestingly, if we leave a conversation, we've had a conversation, let's say just you and I are speaking, and I get you to talk about yourself, you'll leave the conversation thinking, wow, what a nice guy. And all I did really was get you to talk about you, not me. But here's the thing. Once you have that opinion that he's a nice guy, then the next interaction we have, we can take it a little further down the road towards the direction that you want to go. And so absolutely focus on them, get them talking first.
What I'm hearing is interactions. And so you have interactions, you have introductions, you have conversation. But a relationship isn't built in one stage. It's built in a series of steps. I think in your book you said something like, look for the nugget of gold, even when somebody's crucifying the story. And I thought to myself, we have all been there where we know the conversation is not exactly enlightening, but, you look somebody in the eye and you give them that respect because that's what they deserve.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with, they kind of think, well, if you're very relationship orientated, it's very easy for you to communicate and build relationships with people. And you honestly in your book, you say, well, actually, you don't have to have the DNA. It helps if you have those natural confidences and capabilities to communicate with people. But you say it's a skill that's learned. And I think this is very important for people because in this COVID world where there are going to be less jobs or the variety of jobs will be different or how they're designed and companies structure themselves and resource themselves are going to be different. For those that need to engage and build relationships with purpose more, what advice would you give them in terms of perhaps overcoming self-doubt? Because you talk about people that are feeling amateurish, feeling unprofessional. They just don't back themselves if they're having to approach successful people or influential people when it comes to their careers. I was certainly one of those. And as I got older, I think I just got braver. Certainly this show is one of those. You tell me, Lindsay, what would you say to somebody who suffers from self-doubt but needs to mobilize?
So I think, start small. For those who are watching this live and can see me, have a look at my face at the moment. When you said, I want you to come on my podcast, I thought, oh my goodness, no, I couldn't possibly because I'm having a skin cancer treatment at the moment. Look at my skin. It looks pretty grotesque. However, I know that my personality will shine through and my message is more important than my look. And so for those who have self-doubt or aren't so sure, start small. One conversation with one person is all you need to begin a relationship. And in terms of building a network, start with one person and then work to another and another. I've been in big rooms of business functions where there's lots of people and you see, someone standing quietly in the corner, not engaging. I always make a beeline for them and say, hi, I'm Lindsay. What an amazing room. So many people. And they go, oh, yeah. Oh, I'm just overwhelmed. And I go, wow. And so if you engage with that person, there's one. Start there, start small. And then once you've got a bit of a rapport going with them, find someone else to add into your group. And so build from there. It really makes a difference if you, start with somebody. And the other thing, the simple tool, the secret that I use is find some common ground. What have you got in common with this other person that you can both talk about? And so if you're at a big function, you could talk about who invited you. How did you come to be there? Who's the guest speaker? What interests you about them? What about the traffic? What about the weather? There's so many things, simple things that you can talk about to open up the conversation. And the key, as I said before, is to get the other person talking more than you if you can. So start small, find some common ground, get a conversation happening.
You talk about the importance of engaging and building rapport quickly if you want to get the most out of that relationship. And I'm taking on board everything you're saying about listen more. You know, we have perhaps, as they would say, 2 ears and one mouth. Try to find that common ground. Try to think about something in terms of connecting yourself to that individual. I often wonder, though, you know, we talk about finding the right balance between, I guess, what you're sharing so that at least they get a sense of you, so they can remember you. So what you're saying is we really don't have to say anything about ourselves. We have to say a lot about them in that first meeting. We have to get them talking, knowing themselves and thinking, it's all about you tonight. But come tomorrow or in the next few days, I'm going to follow up. What does that follow up look like?
Well, an interesting point, and I think it's critical that every relationship or every conversation that we have, if we follow up in some small way. And so what I do, I've got some little DL, so your typical business size envelope postcards made up. And so if I meet someone interesting at a business event, I'll get their business card usually, and we'll find their contact details, and I'll write them a handwritten note. Dear Roisin, lovely to meet you. Looking forward to seeing you again at the next breakfast. Dear Roisin, lovely to meet you. Here's that book I mentioned. Here's the name of that book I mentioned. Here's that website I was telling you about. A little handwritten note. Now think about this for a second. How many handwritten notes have you received in the last 30 days? Okay, so you know, you may be thinking, well, handwritten notes, oh, that's a bit old-fashioned. Fine, send an email, send a message on LinkedIn, send a Facebook Messenger message, send a WhatsApp message, do whatever works in your world, but follow up, have just a simple reconnection with that person. It's critical and it's powerful.
It's kind of interesting because actually I get thank you notes and I guess gifts and bits and bobs when I find people jobs or when I give them that crucial piece of advice that was the critical linkage to them getting their next job. And it's funny, I have a folder of those thank you notes that I add to every time somebody says, thank you, Roisin. Nowadays, it's the simplest thing in the world, those little cards, those little thank you notes. It's not that hard to make one yourself or to buy one. So many people are so creative and ingenious now. And I can tell you, I treasure them. And since the day I set up this business in 2005, I keep those as my keepsakes, my little treasures, because it reminds me that I make a difference in my work, which is very important to me. You talk about, let's talk about social media, because I was going to say to you, has social media made you change your style? And you're saying really what it's doing, it's allowing you greater license, greater access, greater accessibility and speed to say thank you, and I enjoyed meeting you. But the traditional note should never be disrespected because that is the personalized way of doing business.
Yes,
but Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, please.
I think the most powerful is the handwritten note. You know, I know with my little postcards, I've got a really interesting picture and a saying on them, a slogan. And so I go around to my clients' offices and I see them pinned up on their wall beside their desk. They don't want to throw them away. You keep yours in a folder. What a wonderful collection you must have. But I think the handwritten note's the most powerful. But social media allows us to be so much more instantaneous and spontaneous. And I love the fact that we can do that. And I often will send a message along with a GIF, you know, some sort of picture, or I might actually take a selfie of the two or the three of us in conversation and send that photo. There are some really nifty online tools that you can use now where you can actually add your own picture and create a calling card, and it'll be sent out on your behalf. There's one organisation, I don't subscribe to this one, but it's called Send Out Cards. It's very, very popular. It's a bit of a multi-level thing, but very, very popular and very powerful in terms of, getting your message out. But and there are others. There's lots of them online. But I use Facebook a lot, Facebook Messenger. I use Instagram for photos, and I add a little text on the bottom and send it as a direct message to someone. It just depends what's appropriate, and it's a bit about figuring out what works for the person that you've been talking to. What's their favorite place to be? That's where I'm going to aim to send the message. One of my buddies, you would exchange business cards, and he'd say, "Oh, would you have a second card?" And of course, you always got a second card, and he wouldn't explain why. But 7 days later, I received both of my business cards laminated and made into luggage tags for my suitcase when I travel. What a clever thing to do.
So you're talking about the little tools and tactics of how you deepen a relationship and personalize that relationship. Those cards that came through to me and come through to me, I look for the words. I don't care the words. I don't care if it's a Christmas card. I don't care if it's a birthday card. I don't care if it's a thank you card. I don't care if it's a note that comes through Facebook or a personal message on LinkedIn. But you can tell when a relationship is respectful, appreciative, humble, all of those sort of feelings just from those words. And I think it's something that people should really think about in terms of how they deepen and leverage their relationships. That it's not just that one-sided thing. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was social media makes us travel in numbers. Sometimes I feel like we skirt the ground, and I wonder where the quality is in the relationship sometimes. I got an invite last week from somebody in Singapore, and I'm thinking, yes, when we build a Living Your Career program, which is happening now, we may well be going to Singapore. But the reality is that I thought, how am I going to give time and attention to that relationship right now? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to me? And you said the more relationships or contexts you have, the better to develop into relationships. But it's actually how you activate them that's important. So you have a framework that's called the 4 Key Framework. And I was telling you this morning, even myself and Jeanette and others who you know, we actually put that to the test between ourselves. And we felt a bit short. So for the sake of our audience today, can you tell people about your 4 Key Framework and what it means and how it could be useful for them?
Absolutely. It's actually the key 4. And the key 4 is the key to unlocking more business or more connections, or maybe that new job that you're searching for. And, for our listeners, I want you to picture your hand. For those who are watching, here's my hand. You're the thumb on your hand, and the other 4 fingers are your key 4 network, the 4 network. The palm of your hand is your target market, or maybe it's the job that you want. And so who do you know in your network that would form or become a member of your key 4? And so in a business context, it could be something like this. So I speak about business relationships, and I have 4 buddies. One speaks on leadership, one speaks on teams, the other on sales, the other on communication. We don't compete with each other, and we can all work for the same target market, the same shared client. And so if I'm meeting someone at a business function, I'm thinking about, could I work with them? Or could someone in my key 4 work with them? Now, let's take this into a recruitment situation. I'm talking with someone I meet who may be a prospective employer, and maybe there could be a job for me there, or maybe there could be a job there for someone else in my key 4 group. Maybe they know someone who they can recommend that I contact about a prospective job. And so those 4 people don't compete with you. You all work together to help each other. And so it's a real powerful, simple yet powerful model about, joining your collective strengths to work together.
One of the things we talked about before we went on air, I thought it was classic, was your greats, your gurus, and your go-tos.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody listening, and I'm going to get you to explain why these three categorizations of your nearest and dearest and influential and sponsors and allies. We talk about people who sponsor us. We talk about people who have our back. We talk about people who will reference us tomorrow. We talk about people who think the world of us. But we have never, ever categorized what that looks like. And you have greats, gurus, and go-tos.
Yeah.
So in terms of building and networking, folks, listen carefully to this because I think it's classic.
So, it's about thinking about who's in your network. And so here's my challenge to you. Get out your phone now and start scrolling through, and you can allocate one of these categories to everybody that's in your contact database, in your phone, in your contact list. So the greats, the gurus, and the go-tos. The greats are, and these are all people in your network. So greats are those people who are legends in the industry, in your industry, who that you know and look up to, aspire, who you may ask questions of, and they're there, they're around you. The gurus are simply that. They are the gurus who know lots of things, lots of people, lots of connections, and they can give you great information because they're well-connected people, and they've been there, done that. And oftentimes they're people who are a little perhaps above you in the career progression stakes, and so they know a little more than you. They're more well-connected. And then the go-tos are the people who you can go to connect you with the people that you need to meet, that you need to learn from, that you want to draw information from, that you want to connect with, to get that job, that career, that whatever. And so, of course, I go into a lot more detail in the book, but, if we think about it, if you start to classify your network, then when you face a problem or a challenge next, you can think about, well, who am I going to go to ask or to get support on this one? Will it be a great? Will it be a guru? Or will it be a go-to? And then if you've graded these people, you've got a little tag by their name, then it makes it so much easier, so much quicker. So again, simple, powerful concept.
But test yourself, challenge yourself, look through your phone, look through your contacts. Sometimes I think our CRMs are so wide that have we ever actually taken the time to have a little look at them and say, who have I not been in touch with? Who can I have a mutual relationship? Who can I support and can support me in turn? I think, sometimes the technology is separating us from the relationship, and we need to think about how we can partner them more effectively together.
I'm going to interrupt. I've got my phone in my hand here, and it's on silent. But I challenge everyone who's listening right now. Pick up your phone and go to your contact list and start scrolling. I guarantee that you will see names there of people that you have forgotten you knew or you're even connected with. And so how often do we actually connect to those people? How often do we let them know that we're alive or say hello? And so it's a really, again, there's a lot of, we all know a lot of people. In fact, social scientists tell us that we usually know around 200. I don't know about you, but I got about 2,000 connections in my phone, and way more on my LinkedIn connection list. So we all know lots of people, but how often are we in touch with those people? And so that's another real, good relationship tip. Stay in touch. Find the opportunity to connect or reconnect.
One of the things you talk about, and I think it is so true. I mean, humility is a big thing that we've talked about in recent years. Be humble, be appreciative. It's really come through all the leadership literature. But you talk today about sincerity. Listen to people, make them the focus, and focus diligently and sincerely on that conversation. But one of the things you talk about is enthusiasm. You said enthusiasm is captivating. Enthusiasm humor, just being light. Sometimes I think, the conversations can get so deep and dark sometimes. Perhaps you can tell me a little bit about what enthusiasm, what that means to you and how you've used it effectively in a networking sense.
Well, I think enthusiasm, it can be a two-edged sword. You can be over enthusiastic, and I get a bit excited, a bit carried away, and I cut you off before. But I
love it.
I'm keen to share a great idea, and I think that's the thing with enthusiasm. If people understand that you're enthusiastic, they sense that you are a go-getter, that you want to make things happen, then you become a better employable prospect than the next person who sits back and perhaps is way more reserved or inexpressive. And so I think, a little bit of enthusiasm, and enthusiasm can be as simple as when you're in conversation with someone and you've said, so what brings you to this function today? Oh, I was invited here by Roisin Duffy. Oh, Roisin. Oh, I believe she's a very well-connected person in the industry. That's enthusiasm. And it's so simple to be enthusiastic. It's not like, oh, Roisin, how boring is that? It just ramp it up a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. So enthusiasm really, if it shows, people pick up on it. You don't need to be bouncing all over the place. You don't need to be smiling, ridiculously. You just need to be attentive and attentive and perhaps quick or sharper with your responses and comments.
I think we can all say for sure that the people who make us laugh, that have a smile on their dial, are the people that we naturally gravitate. And that's just basic 101. I guess you talk about personal gesture. We talk about this professional service. Lindsay, in the last week or two, I have seen how you operate. I have seen your response times. I have seen your lovely manner, your reliability. So many of those factors that just through your actions are very evident to people. You say something, you back it up, you follow through. Talk to me a little bit about what you believe mutuality means, because many people, and I said to you, I had a phone call just before we went on the podcast, many people want, but what are they giving in return?
Yeah.
And I think mutuality is not one-sided. So perhaps you can explain to me how you have mastered that.
So in my book, I wrote about a thing called the PS. And the PS is a small act of positive service. And I'm a great believer in service. And I'm a great believer in serving others. And in fact, one of the reasons I received the Order of Australia Medal was for my service to the professional speaking industry in Australia and internationally. And so how do you do that? Well, it can be really simple, a small act of positive service. So, and I'll give you a silly example, but it blows me away every time I think about this. I was at a conference in America, a couple of thousand people in the event. It's lunchtime, so you can imagine the buffet. There was people everywhere, big queues at the buffet. I got to the head of the queue, and at the end of the table was a big pile of plates and knives and forks. I took a plate and a knife and fork pack, and I turned around to the guy behind me, and I read his name tag. It said, "Hello, John, I'm Lindsay. There's a plate." And he went, "What? Well, thank you, Lindsay." And then we went down the buffet line, filled our plates, sat together over lunch, and had the most energizing and amazing conversation. That man has become my second best friend for life. I have an open invitation to stay in his house next time I travel to America, by simply creating a small act of service. So it's that mutuality. It's about, don't think about yourself, think about others. What small act of service could I perform for someone else that would help them in some small way? Now, did I give him the plate thinking I need somewhere to stay next time I come to America? I don't want to pay for a hotel. Who's it going to be? No, I simply gave the guy a plate. And there are so many other, examples I can think of. I was in a hotel in Singapore, a Holiday Inn. I was running a 2-day training program. It's day one. I'm there early. I've set up my room. I had time to kill. And I'm standing at the doorway to my room, and I see this woman, an African-American woman, come through the door. And she's got a rollerboard. She had books and files and boxes. She was overloaded and she was struggling. And she's looking around, and I said, "Oh, you look a little lost. Could I help?" And she said, "Oh, I'm looking for the so-and-so room." I said, "Oh, I know where that is. Here, come with me. It's right beside my room." And I took one of her boxes off her and I walked her to the room beside mine. And she said, "Thank you so much." At the next break, we saw each other from afar. We waved. And the next day at morning tea, I went up and I said, "We haven't really introduced ourselves. I'm Lindsay Adams." And she said, "Not the Lindsay Adams." And I'm like, "What?" Now, I'm heavily involved, as you know, in the professional speaking industry.
Yes.
I'm in Singapore, but that was the year that I was the international president. And so everybody knew the name. And in fact, I was visiting to speak at the local speakers chapter whilst I was there. So, of course, she knew the name. Now, that chance meeting has led to a 10-year friendship, to the point where we help and support each other. The woman's name is Pamela Wigglesworth. She's an executive presence guru, and she works with people like our listeners, helping them groom themselves to present well in all sorts of corporate situations. So, but that chance encounter, that small act of service, "Can I help you? You look a little lost. Here, let me take one of those boxes." How simple is that stuff? And yet, what a wonderful, happy relationship we've got from that. So think about, how could you serve someone else with no intention of receiving anything in return, and see what comes? It's absolutely amazing when you open yourself to service, and it creates that mutuality that you spoke of.
Last week we spoke, and I had done 2 or 3 pieces of very influential work for people that got them jobs. So it was career coaching, application development, all of that sort of thing, but really taking people in hand and showing them that there was a lot more gas in the tank, and let's project this so that this helps you. And the interesting thing is, I thought, well, now we're doing the Living Your Career program. I'll get these guys to put up a testimonial to say, yes, Living Your Career has been around for a long time, but now we're taking it online and so forth. That work is all happening. But I thought I'll ask for a testimonial. And I remember talking to you and reading your book, and you said, "No, Roisin, you give the testimonial. You give the testimony because you know what makes those people tick, and you can back them because you've done this work for them."
Yep.
And that's exactly what I did. So I have been actually applying, and I encourage everybody to read your book, because the little touches that you're talking about, you have built homes on the back of chance relationships and little touches and little conversations. And I think we mustn't lose sight of the fact that, yes, our inner circle is important. And yes, we all lead busy lives, and we're raising families, and we're studying, and we're looking after, elderly or perhaps sick people in our family. We all have all sorts of obligations now, but we must not forget that we're human, and we must try to extend the hand of help when we can. And I think that, as you said yourself, that will come back in terms of mutuality. That comes back tenfold.
Absolutely. So here's a little challenge for those who are listening. Go to your LinkedIn profile and pick out your 5 top connections and write a testimonial for them. Just give them the gift. Of your endorsement for their profile. Go and look at my profile on LinkedIn. I've got, 50, 60, 70 testimonials there, and most of them have come simply because I gave a testimonial first. Now, does that mean that I give testimonials because I want them? No, not really. In fact, yes, it does work. It's the law of reciprocity. If you help someone, they will help you in return. Not everybody gives you a return testimonial, and that's okay. But just go and give without the thought of receiving and see what happens. I tell you, you'll be amazed at what comes from that small act of service.
I have a final question. I mean, honestly, I could probably talk for a very long time with you, Lindsay, I have to tell you, because I think there's so much common sense, so much decency and humanity in everything that you're saying. COVID-19, many of us bemoan, the tyranny of distance. My mother is in West Cork in Ireland. She's 86 years of age. Trust me, I'd like to be on a plane and go see her.
Of course.
Technology, we talk about technology. It never switches off. In some respects, it helps us with this instantaneous communication. In other ways, we don't have that personal touch the way we would like. Those face-to-face interactions that you've been alluding to. I'd like to know firstly, how you see the world of networking changing. How do you see building relationships change, or not at all? Just focus on the basics. Have you made any adjustments because of COVID? Have you made any adjustments because of social isolation? We're on StreamYard right now. We could have been on Zoom. We could have been on anything. How do you incorporate you so you don't lose sight of you and what matters to you in the people that the relationships you form, the networks that you value, and the business that you need to build and develop? You've got 4 successful businesses.
So, social media is, again, double-edged sword. So it can be very instantaneous and very complimentary. I've seen people say and do silly things on social media which damages their brand, damages their reputation. And if I was a prospective employer and I saw some of the things that people post, I'd think twice about whether I want to interview them. So first of all, be very careful about what you post and what you say and what you do on social media. I used to think Facebook was for fun and LinkedIn was for business. It doesn't work like that anymore. All of the platforms cross over between fun, family, business, whatever. So you can't hide anymore. Okay, so we've established that. So then the next thing is, in terms of staying in touch, I use all of the platforms for staying in touch, particularly through COVID, when I couldn't, when we were in lockdown, we couldn't leave our homes even. I'll tell you what I did. I would send messages to people, personal messages, saying, how are you? And the other thing I did was the good old-fashioned telephone, the how are you call. And so I would ring up and simply say, hi, Roisin, it's Lindsay. How are you? Haven't spoken to you in ages. What's happening in your world? How are you coping? Now, I didn't ring and say, hi, Roisin, have you got any jobs that might suit me at the moment? How's business? Do you want to buy something that I'm selling? No, I didn't ring to sell anything. I didn't ring to ask for a favor. I simply rang to say, how are you? Now, it's really interesting what comes of that. Number one, what comes of that is people remember, oh, Lindsay, how are you, mate? Lovely to hear from you. So my name is now in the forefront of their mind. And so they remember me again. And then you wouldn't believe what comes. Lindsay, you know what? There was a job. I was talking to someone just yesterday. I've got a fantastic opportunity which might suit you. I've got a wonderful opportunity. I'd love to connect you with someone who's looking for, they're looking for a great conference speaker. Maybe you're the guy. I'll connect you to them. Or maybe the conversation just goes, well, being locked down, it's a packet of pulp and gee whiz, I'm not very happy about it. I'm not very happy about it. It doesn't matter whether you get an opportunity or not. It's simply keep in touch and show them that you're a real person and that you're interested in the relationship first and other stuff second. And again, it really cements you as being a worthwhile person to have in their network. And down the track, at some stage, when an opportunity comes, they will remember you 10 times more than anyone else who hasn't spoken to them or hasn't connected with them. So a how are you call can be by phone, can be on Messenger, can be on email. Me personally, I love that. I love the phone connection, actually having a voice. I had a call this morning from New Zealand. I was catching up with one of my buddies over there, just a simple how are you call. We spent 5 minutes catching up, swapping, what are you doing? What are you doing? And that was it. So think about that. How can you leverage on these platforms to stay in touch and remind people that you're out there and that you are a valuable asset in their network?
As you said, and we're going to wrap up now, Lindsay, I want to say, firstly, invaluable advice. I think there is a real sincerity, and there is a real kindness and a real desire to help that comes through you when you're talking about what you know and what you value and what you believe in. I think for those listening to the show today, don't forget some of the key 4 framework. Think about it. Think about your greats, your gurus, your go-tos. Think about mutuality. Think about focus. Think about enthusiasm. Most of all, prioritize you and prioritize the relationships that are going to be valuable for you and your career. And so on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much. Lindsay Adams, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to everybody else, we're back on Thursday. Lindsay, you're going to stay on because we're going to have a chat. And if anybody wants to comment on the show, if anybody has any inquiries or information, by all means, send through a post and we will respond to it. Thank you very much. This is Roisin Duffy. This is the Living Your Career Show. Thank you and good day. Thank you and good day.